Okay, welcome everybody to our November general meeting for koha-US. We've got a couple announcements. Giving Tuesdays, December 1st, the Tuesday right after Thanksgiving. So watch for information. It'll go up on our website and Facebook page at least about what we're doing for that. John, do you want to talk about membership?
Sure. Membership for 2021 will be opening after the general meeting next month. Those people that attended our virtual event will actually be given the opportunity to join before. Membership dues for 2021 remain the same price as stated in the bylaws of $25. And for those that are renewing their memberships with no changes, the process will actually be very straightforward. Just a series of, yes, nothing has changed, very much and very similar to the process for 2020. For those people from 2019 that renewed, you'll get a membership renewal letter that will contain all of your information, so you don't have to go wondering whether it's up to date or not. But you would always be able to go into the members area and look at the membership roster. Oh, now that I think about that, that doesn't contain everything by design. So the renewal notice that you'll get will be far more comprehensive in its approach. And so stay tuned. The members of the board will be getting their renewals along with those that indicated interest in joining that are not currently members. They'll be getting all of that shortly to do a little test run through, if you will. So before we open up the masses, to make sure that there are no unexpected problems with anything. If you do have any questions about membership, I'm always available and welcome to take them. Treasurer@koha-us.org, of course, is the best way to be able to do that. And I look forward to getting membership opened.
Thank you, John. Anyone else have any announcements?
I didn't put the special interest groups on the agenda this time, but they are still a thing. One sort of development is that Ed said at the system admin group this week that he's looking for someone to replace him for next year. So we'll probably be sending out some sort of notice unless there's somebody that wants to do that.
And we also might be moving the time because that was part of it.
Right.
He wasn't going to be able to be there that time, and it's also hard for me because I have another meeting that partially overlaps the same week. So if you are interested in the sysadmin group and haven't come because of the time, you might want to join the mailing list if you haven't already. So if we send out emails about moving the time, you're included on that.
Yep.
Okay, elections are fast approaching. Let's see, when we sent out in the minutes that or in the agenda announcement that we were gonna start voting. So a week from then, which was Tuesday, right? Or Monday. Early next week, voting will open for officers. And we have 3 people running for between 2 positions this year. We have Barbara was nominated, Barbara Johnson, who's here, for vice president. And then we have Christopher Brannon and Bob Benhoff were both nominated for member at large supported. So Barbara, would you like to just say a few words about yourself?
I'm Barbara from Bedford. We've been on Koha since 2016, and I'm really passionate about Koha. I was not necessarily thinking of running for an office, but Rhonda at Round Rock sort of sweet talked me into putting my name forward. So I did. And I've never really served on any kind of board or anything like that. So this will be a learning experience.
Thank you, Barbara. Christopher, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Not really, but I will. I've been with koha-US since it started, and I've served off and on the board as vice president and president, and currently working with George Williams on the training videos, which we just put out another one yesterday or so. We put out our 5th. So highly involved with koha-US, but because I have been on the board before, I would gladly be fine if Bob took the position, but it's whatever you guys want.
Thanks, Christopher. And Bob, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
I was just going to say, given Christopher's experience, I'd be fine if he took it, but so I guess we'll let the voters decide. I manage AspenCat, which is a large consortium in Colorado of all library types, and we joined Community Koha. We were on LibLime Koha previously in February 2019, and I've been involved with a few committees and doing the consortia special interest group. So that's my relevant experience.
Thank you very much, Bob. So the vote-in form will go out to members early next week, and it'll be open for 2 weeks, I believe, per the bylaws. And then we will contact the winners and then announce the new people at the December meeting. Any questions about the election process? Okay. Let's switch back to the agenda. Committee reports. Conference committee has not met since the last general meeting. We're still looking for people who are interested in being on the conference committee for both next year's conference in McKinney in September and next spring's Koha-thon conference. If you're interested in helping out with either of those, being on the committee doesn't mean you have to help with both. Please let me know or email us at info@koha-us.org.
Hey, we skipped a couple topics there.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
I can read, I promise. Yep. Okay. Financial manager position proposed changes. John, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Let me go ahead and move my document over here. One of the things that came to my attention when I took over the role of treasurer after my election in Coeur d'Alene in 2017 was that it was an incredible amount of work to get things transferred. And in fact, some things still haven't been transferred because of name misspellings and this and that. And in theory, the role of treasurer can change every 2 years. Fortunately, it's not every 1 year due to the changes in the koha-US bylaws, but still, even once every 2 years can be a rather daunting prospect, especially when you're considering the fact that these changes might include closing bank accounts, opening new bank accounts, trying to make sure the financial integrity of the records is maintained, as well as just the financial status of the organization. And that got me to thinking, and this was something that took place when Christopher Brannon was president. And I said, you know, some organizations that I'm used to dealing with have a treasurer, but then they also have basically a business manager. A business manager is somebody that provides a level of stability for the organization and isn't necessarily an elected position, but provides a backbone and a means to keep the organization afloat, even as board positions across different levels change, either at the same time or at different times. At the point of this original discussion, a lot of positions changed over at the same time. And it was only with the koha-US bylaw revisions, and I believe it was 2018, that we started to stagger things a little bit, so it wasn't going to be quite as dramatic. One of the last things Christopher agreed to during his tenure as president was he thought that this was a good idea. And as the treasurer, he gave me the charge to come up with this type of position for discussion and consideration by the membership. I was reelected to treasurer in 2018, and that kind of removed the onus of that position for a little bit while. And the development of the position kind of continued to percolate under both the presidencies of George and Lizette. Well, here we are now at the end of 2020. By koha-US bylaws, I am ineligible to run for treasurer. And as somebody that has served as treasurer of this organization now for just over 3 years, let me tell you that there's, generally speaking, absolutely zero interest in the position of treasurer. If that were the case, we would have had a nomination for treasurer, and we didn't even have that for the upcoming election, making the discussion that we're about to have relatively immediately relevant and pertinent. So I worked with the finance committee and came up with the document that you see linked here, proposed changes, that talks about my idea for a financial manager, talks about the differences in the positions and their procedural appointments, as well as a delineation of responsibilities, and then finally, a series of recommended bylaws changes that would take the proposal that I've put here and turn it into a reality. In terms of differences between the two positions, the treasurer is nominated by members and elected by members through standard timelines and serves up to two two-year terms. Those two-year terms run December to December, like all board positions. The financial manager, however, serves at the sole discretion of the koha-US board and is not subject to term limits. The financial manager position could be nominated at any time, with that nomination approved or rejected by membership vote following the bylaws. And the financial manager may be removed by the board at any time with no required notification to membership, with the financial manager being removed with or without cause. In terms of delineations of responsibilities, the financial manager position is meant to handle the more administrative aspects of what is currently handled by the treasurer. This includes the maintenance of all of the financial records for the organization, as well as membership records and membership processing. The financial manager provides the address of record for the organization, which is something that's particularly important for the several filings that we do every year with both the Internal Revenue Service as well as the state of Kansas. The financial manager basically compiles all of the reports. They put together the numbers that would appear in the finance committee reports, either monthly or quarterly, as well as the numbers that appear in the annual report. And the financial manager is also a member of the finance committee and chairs that committee or reports back to the board or membership in general in the absence of the treasurer. The treasurer continues to chair the finance committee under these recommendations. The treasurer continues to write the monthly finance committee reports and presents to the board and general membership, is responsible for the meat of the budget as well as the annual report, and handles all other matters not specifically outlined in this breakdown. There are some similarities between both of these positions as envisioned. Both are given signatory authority along with the president and vice president. Both are provided with the authorization to act on behalf of the organization regarding financial matters, again, along with the president and vice president. And these responsibilities include the ability to authorize and remove other authorized signatories from any koha-US financial account. Both positions are also members of the board that are eligible to vote, meaning we would therefore no longer have the 6-person board that we have right now, and then with 100% incumbency and 100% attendance, no abstentions, there could no longer be the possibility of a tie. Not that this is something that's ever really happened during the relatively short tenure of koha-US, but the ability of having a non-tieable board, I think, is something that's very desirable for any organization. One of these two positions, that is to say financial manager and treasurer, is meant to be occupied at all times. In the event that one of these two positions is vacant, the other position will assume all responsibility until such time that the vacancy is filled. So if we were to not suddenly get a treasurer nomination, if I were to be appointed to the role of financial manager, I would basically continue what I have been doing since 2017, but with the title of financial manager pending a nomination by the board and pending approval of the membership of that nomination. If both positions are vacant, and this is something that's actually not discussed in our bylaws, this would be a new clause. In the event both positions are vacant, the vice president assumes all of these responsibilities until such time that either a new treasurer or financial manager can be seated as required by the bylaws, Article 3, Section 6, or the bylaws that would be drafted that discuss the financial manager position, which is Article 4, Section 2. Then there are all the bylaws changes, which I will not go into in detail here, but the changes that I've proposed were vetted by the Finance Committee and shared with the board during last month's board meeting. So the board has had an opportunity to review them and reflect on them and their appropriateness. With all of that being said, I turn the discussion over to the membership for questions or any questions that the board might have if they have not shared them with me or the Finance Committee about the creation of this position and its subsequent bylaws changes. Anybody? The silence is deafening, as they say.
I only have one concern, and that's, John, you said this is your last year?
My term as treasurer ends in a month, effectively.
Okay. My only concern is voting in a new vice president and not having a nominee for treasurer. That's a daunting position to put a newbie in.
That is very true. I welcome any thoughts that any vice president seemed like the best place to put that responsibility. It didn't seem appropriate to treasurer or any of the at-large positions, and that really only left the vice president with the hope that one of these positions would actually be filled at all times. I really hope it never comes to the point that there is neither a financial manager or a treasurer. What to do if there were not a person in both positions was something that I just kind of thought of at the end. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if we don't have anything? There's currently no guidance for that at all. And I felt there needed to be something. And when you look at the current responsibilities of the board positions as they're outlined, putting it under vice president seemed to be the best fit, even though it wasn't great.
It seems like, in a position like this is kind of unique. It seems like it would make sense since you have a vice president becoming president, already familiar with the organization to some degree, that, if you've got a new incoming vice president, and this is falling on that person, that they share that responsibility, at least for some time, until the vice president gets settled. I would hate putting a new person in that position when they weren't expecting, to cover those kinds of tasks.
Yeah, right now I'm kind of thinking of saying, is it too late to withdraw?
And in fact, I think that with the vice president being the de facto chair of committees, though right now we have good other chairs for most of the committees, that I feel like being the president was an easier job than being the vice president. And also because like you're already familiar with it. And so, okay, also Barbara, I saw you kind of sigh there like, oh no, what am I getting myself into? But that was, I became the vice president and we added the education committee and I was the chair of all the committees except finance. And that is not the case anymore. I think the only one that the vice president is, well, I guess the development committee and the conference committee, unless someone else volunteers, but there's also like a lot of people on the conference committee, so the work and the education committee, so like the work is really shared there. So but the de facto, the vice president currently has a lot of responsibilities, so maybe having it be the president both because of that and because they're going to be a little more experienced with what's already happening. Like Christopher.
And I am, it's a very easy change for me to make. That's why we have this discussion. And Lizette, I agree. I remember very well some of the board meetings where you'd go through the committee reports and it would be the Lizette show until you got to the finance committee, which became my show. And I thought very seriously about not making it vice president until I realized that so much of what happens now on the committee level has been rolled off. But Christopher's point is very valid here. And I'm very willing to, that's why we're having this discussion. The comment that Christopher brought up is discussed in Article 4, Section 2, which is in the proposed document. And pending discussion here, making it president certainly seems like a very valid suggestion, because that person would already have a year's worth of organizational knowledge, if not perhaps more, underneath their belt, than a vice president who might just be starting up for the very first time and really quite possibly could be overwhelmed, because even though we're a relatively small organization, there is a lot to be able to digest and manage.
Although I have seen many boards where the treasurer position is shared by the secretary.
Jason sweating bullets, I can hear it over here.
Yeah, I am. No, it's fine. I mean, if that's a more logical place to put it, I agree with you guys though that vice president is probably too much pressure on an incoming person, unless we're talking about outgoing vice president and incoming president. It really it depends on at what point that's happening. If there are vacancies.
And with treasurer and secretary now very purposely split into alternating year elections, that provides us the same level of stability that effectively making president do everything. It provides that same level of detail. So we could go with president, we could go with secretary. I guess it really all depends on what people think. Or we could even include that as an option. Which of these two would you like? Pending your approval of the rest of the bylaws, what does the membership think would be a suitable position for this, either president or secretary, effectively having ruled out the possibility of vice president with the discussions that we've just had?
What would you say to considering the immediate past president who had the experience of vice president and president?
As the person who's about to be the immediate past president, I know that like my boss is very much looking forward to me not being in as many meetings. And so I think we might want to talk to like Barbara and Rhonda, who are the most likely to be the next two people to eventually be past president after me, because if they also had to like talk to their bosses to get permission, and they said it was like a 2-year commitment, like the past president still mostly is there to answer questions, and as far as I know doesn't actually have any responsibility or have to ever go to board meetings or anything, right? So that is a change that might affect like if people can agree to be on a position. Michael in chat said maybe putting treasurer duties with president and financial manager duties with secretary, so splitting it when there's none of either between two of the positions.
I would just like to throw out that, you don't necessarily have to say this position is going to take this if this role is not filled. You could leave it to, any of the board members that are capable of doing it. You could have a vote by the board to decide which of them is going, to agree upon who's going to fill this role at that time, because you may have somebody coming in into one of these positions that does not feel comfortable or qualified at all to do it, and to lock it into a specific role to fall back on might be detrimental. It might be better just to have that as, you know, board appointed as necessary.
I think that's an excellent idea. And that's, you bring up the very valid point. If more people were comfortable with finances, we'd probably have a nominee for treasurer now. And it's clear to me, having served in this role for just over 3 years, that there are a lot of people in this organization that would rather run from screaming from a burning building than serve as the treasurer for anything. Looking at the skill sets of the board, because there would be 5 people there to pick from, having them discuss internally and then make a recommendation to the membership, maybe that's the key here, to take what Christopher said and modify it just slightly. In the event both of these positions are vacant, the board makes a recommendation as to temporarily filling the position, the responsibilities, with a board member, and the membership then approves that, so that the membership has a say, not that the board just comes down and say, oh yeah, we've got neither of these 2 people, so this is who it's going to be. But then voting on it, I think, providing membership a vote, I think, is a very nice way to handle it, and would very appropriately capture and be able to reflect the skill sets of those that are actually on the board at that time.
I think that's a good solution.
Agreed.
So what I can do then is this. Are there any other discussions about the proposed bylaws changes that would create this position? Or is this really the only point of question at this point in time? Because what I can do then, if there are no other questions or if there is no other discussion, I can make the modification.
I have something.
Yes.
So I'm on the Utah Library Association, and our finance person is actually a paid position. Granted, we don't have a treasurer, but that might be an incentive. He doesn't get paid a lot, but he does get paid for his work to, you know, work with the budget and to write the checks and things like that, and to do the things that he needs to do. And since he or she in the financial manager would be a more permanent, they would be like a staff member, if that makes sense. That might take away the board voting and stuff like that, but that's something to consider as far as getting somebody in there.
I thought momentarily about doing that, but creating a paid position of any sort creates a series of I won't call them difficulties, I'll call them complications and matters for consideration that change the types of the type of filings we have to file, particularly with the federal government. Once you start wandering into the land of paid positions, things get really kind of sloppy and challenging really fast. With all volunteer positions, that type of work and paperwork and documentation does not exist. If we were a larger organization, and if I thought that the financial manager position was going to take up more time, then I would certainly agree with that, Christopher. But with the amount of work that is currently done, to keep it, or to try to keep it an unpaid position in the interest of helping to keep things a little bit simpler, is desired. If we were to grow, if we were to double in size, anything certainly over 300 members, this discussion would be a little bit different. At that point in time, it's way too much to ask anybody, a single volunteer, to just donate their time like that. But with the numbers that we have right now, which even for the budget that I'm running for membership year 2021, I'm still not anticipating we'll go over 100 members. And that's primarily because of the horror that 2020 was. To keep it unpaid, at least at this point in time, is the better recommendation. But your point is very well taken and very valid with regard to the fact that there are instances in organizations where this type of position is in fact paid, but there are trade-offs to that in terms of what we need to do as an organization. Is there any further discussion or any questions? If there are no other questions, I will take the discussion that we've just had and I will rewrite the one paragraph of Article 4, Section 2 that discusses what should happen in the event both positions are vacated. It will include a discussion about the board considering one of the existing members to take over the responsibilities, with that board nomination then being subject to membership approval using standard koha-US bylaws. I can have that done by the end of the day Monday, with a quick review by the Finance Committee and then by the board. And we can then put the final series of bylaws changes up for a vote as part of the December general meeting.
Okay, thank you, John.
So John, correct me if I'm wrong, you've served for 3 years?
3 years, that's correct.
Okay. But
And
the current term of the treasurer is 2 years?
That's right.
So we can grandfather another year in off of you, right?
I can't, because of the way we now stagger treasurer and secretary. And in fact, when we were looking at this in 2018, there was a board discussion about, well, which one should be in the odd years and which one should be in the even years. And at that time, I had a job prospect lined up. And so it seemed like the better thing to make the treasurer even years and thus the secretary odd years, because of the fact that I might not be around past the end of December anyway. Well, then the job fell through and I stuck around anyway. So I was just simply reelected to another 2-year term. But because of the way the wording in the bylaws is, my longest length of term could only be 3 years and not the standard 4 because of when I started office relative then to the bylaw change. It was an exciting time in Coeur d'Alene, what can I say?
Could you just change your name and we'll all, just go along with your new name and not look the other way?
Does this mean I get to wear fake glasses and a cheesy mustache? Because I might be in for that.
Of course, anything you want. Let's see, I've got a pipe around here somewhere. Or yeah, I have said that I am willing to nominate the Avenging Chicken for treasurer and then just delegate everything.
So now for the other agenda item, I accidentally skipped because my page scrolled down past the nice list Jason made. Development update. Our development to pay for a change to how the descriptions work, where libraries can set like a template toolkit to like print information that is not tied into the item number. So if an item gets deleted, it's still in the description field, especially for like deleting lost items without having to rebill everything and still know which library it belongs to and what book it is, or that it's a book even, because sometimes at least it just prints lost item and amount and nothing else if the item gets deleted. So we have signed the contract and sent that back. I haven't yet seen an invoice. John, have you?
I have not. Nothing
Okay.
has come to my attention.
So that's the next step. We're waiting to get invoiced so we can pay, and then they'll work on it for us. And then we're also talking about changing the development process. I think we had our meeting last week. I had to leave a little early because I had another meeting, but I believe the plan was to take it to the board for the next board meeting in December. And then once the board doesn't have more questions for the development committee, to bring it to the membership to vote on a change for that. Hopefully we'll be able to vote in December unless the board comes up with lots of questions we didn't have answers for. So just now that we've done a development cycle, we hadn't done one yet when we made the current process. So trying to make it work better for our membership. Okay. Back to the committee reports. That's pretty much the development report also. Education committee, Christopher and George put out a new every other Thursday training video yesterday. And we have a meeting next week. We have a couple more webinars in the pipes. So we should hopefully be announcing dates for those sometime after our meeting next week. We're still working on some more resource guides. So that's what's up with the education committee. Let's see here. Fundraising committee did not meet, but we're planning on doing something for Giving Tuesday on December 1st. I already talked about that a little bit. Watch our Facebook and website for more information on that. I keep opening the wrong tab. Okay, finance committee, back to John.
It's been quiet. Normally, the third quarter of the year is very busy with conference-related income and expenses. When you don't have a physical conference, or more specifically, you hold a virtual conference with no registration fee, you don't have any income. And you have really minimal expense. The expense is very minimal. I'll talk about that in just a second. But really, a lot of the activity that would have taken place in the third quarter did not happen. We are currently at 83 members. We had somebody join as a result of the virtual conference, and others may join as well. So financially, we're still doing very well. We generally do pretty well during the conference season. One of the goals of the conference, of course, all of the money raised in excess of our expenses goes towards koha-US initiatives. And but without that, we're still doing incredibly well. The only expense we really had during the month of September was the $25 that we paid for a Zoom expansion. And October, in and of itself, had no expenses. So that being said, the third quarter generally was very quiet. If you take a look at the third quarter financial report, you'll see that we brought in a total of $194.06, which is significantly lower than what you would normally expect to see in the third quarter. Third quarter expenses totaled only $29.14, and most of that was the $24.73 that was paid for Zoom. Nearly the rest, all of the rest of it, if not all of the rest of it, yes, all of the rest of it were various PayPal service charges for when people paid for membership. So the quarterly report, the quarterly financial report, as well as the monthly report, really show no surprises other than for me to say we continue to do very well financially. It now being November, work will begin on the 2021 budget very soon. The budget will be presented to the board at the December board meeting and then shared with everybody at the general meeting for ratification and approval. And there are some conference expenses that we have that we're not going to treat as conference expenses merely because we didn't have any conference income. We've gone ahead and ordered Oh, they're backwards, but you get the idea of what they look like. Hex stickers for all of the people that registered for the conference. They will receive a letter from koha-US with a conference hex sticker, as well as the generic stickers that we've been handing out for a while. I'm going to go into my office and hope that I can print envelopes, because writing out 85 plus envelopes by hand is nobody's idea of a good time. So I'm hoping that actually will work, although my staff tell me, and I quote them, good luck. They don't like the odds of that printer printing envelopes for me. But that point aside, anybody that registered will receive the conference and one of the generic stickers, as well as a letter thanking them for their attendance. The total sticker cost was only about $180. Estimated postage costs, including the few letters that will be going to Canada, is about $85. And then about $20 or so for stamps, means the total expense, all of which will be charged as a marketing expense, will be about $300, which really isn't all that bad. And we actually had put money aside for marketing initiatives outside of the conference. We just haven't spent any of it because everybody's been sitting at home pretty much since the middle of March. So even this as a marketing expense that was not necessarily budgeted for, it turns out it will all work out anyway, because we hadn't spent anything on marketing. So that concludes the treasurer's report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
There don't seem to be any questions, so I think we can move on to open discussion. I know at least a couple of us have upgraded to 2005. Barbara and I had some very exciting times a week ago today, the day after our upgrade. Our circ and find rules table imploded because 2005 had an update that had two updates about the circ and find rules table, one of which checks to make sure the rules are valid, like that the item type still exists, for example, and one of them checks, one update moves the whole circ and find rules into a different table than it currently is in. And when they upgraded, it did it in the wrong order. So it checked to make sure rules were good and then moved. And then there were rules that weren't good, so it broke. Because it had already determined there were problems. It's instead supposed to move everything and then check for validity after it's moved over, and then just like give you a warning next time you go to edit it. So that was exciting. We couldn't renew things or place holds or check out things. It just gave us lots of fun errors. They were able to fix it with a backup, and from what I understand, future updates have been pushed out from December to January for people who are not early adopters. I don't know if it's because of that or only that, but I imagine that's a big headache if it happens to a lot of their partners.
Bywater pushed back the updates or the upgrades because they're looking at doing their own cloud servers.
Okay.
Just for greater flexibility for them. So they're moving out of the public cloud server to a private cloud.
Cool. Since mine wasn't pushed back, I didn't know the details. I just know we had problems on Friday, and then I talked to people on Tuesday and they just found out that they got pushed back. And I know that they have done that in the past when there were big issues with early adopters. So good. Thanks for the extra information. We've also noticed some problems with our branch transfers where it's and we have tickets and they're still working on this because it took us a little while to figure it out, where it's letting people place holds they couldn't previously place and only letting them set pickup okay, so we have pickup locations turned off right now, and where you can only pick up at your home library. Patrons can't pick where their pickup location is. And if they try placing a hold on an item that's not at a library that's not doing transfers yet, it will let them place the hold, but only to pick up at the home location. Whereas before, it just wouldn't let them place the hold. And so we have a ticket in about that, and we've had a lot of confusion the last few days. We didn't really, nobody noticed it the first couple days, because enough of our libraries are open that there's very few where like the only item is at a library that's closed. And so, or that's not doing transfers. If they were just closed, we could just hide them from the OPAC until they were open again. But we have a number of libraries that are only doing like in-house, or like people can come in, but they're not transferring yet. So that's our two biggest things. There was a problem if you're on Elasticsearch with some jQuery that had been placed in to prevent a different problem, where when that got fixed in the base code, the jQuery was making it so you couldn't use the check-in, like when you just scan the barcode into the search bar with the check-in selected, it just wouldn't do anything. And so I'm guessing if you already have that, I know like Bywater put it in for us and for Barbara. So they probably have a list of who they did that for, and it'll just take it out since they know it does that now. Barbara, have you noticed anything else?
One thing about the where different system preferences are moving to the news tool. We have a pretty customized OPAC, and we used a particular font. And no matter what I did, it wouldn't display the font. If I inspected the elements, it said it was the font I wanted, but I could tell it's not what it was actually displaying. So there's apparently a new system preference. I think it's called News Tool Editor. And it needed to be changed to CodeMirror instead of the tiny MCE. And that fixed it. Apparently with being the other way, whatever changes I was making, I guess it was just like, I'm not going to do what you want. So that solved that problem for us.
Okay. And I know there were nice things too. Like you can see SMS providers on patron details screen. You don't have to edit a patron to see if they have an SMS provider in.
And this one's for Heather. The cataloging macros are fabulous.
Oh yeah, you can like save them and share them, I think too, or is the
Yeah.
share a future? Okay, and share them.
Share. Mm-hmm.
So
We had a pretty big issue with placing holds, because we have so many branches, placing holds on records that have lots of items. It was inefficiently like validating a bunch of different things, which would then in turn crash our system. So, but they quickly wrote something to fix that, and that's already past QA, and we have the patch in, and it'll be backported. So we, for any other large consortia, that should be ironed out by the time you go on.
okay. One other problem that we had is, I'm trying to find the bug now that we put in about it, but the if you have a certain system preference that okay, here. So if you have hide patron name set to don't show, the description of that preference says show or don't show the names of patrons that have items checked out or on hold on the detail pages or the place hold screen. It also no longer shows up on the like on the check-in screen. There's a column of who it was checked out by, and now that's only a barcode number, and it is still like a link to the patron if you want to go look, but I know a lot of our school libraries especially have complained about the change, and it wasn't documented anywhere because it was just like part of another bug. Not even sure if that was the intended purpose. But it was like part of making sure that names were displaying the same way in different parts of Koha, where sometimes it was like first name, last name, sometimes it was last name, comma, first name, and sometimes there wasn't a comma. And so there was like a bug that standardized a bunch of that, but also I guess that the way that it standardized it now looks at that system preference. So that's good to be aware of, so you can at least warn your staff if you use that system preference. And there's also a bug to either update to basically either update the description so it's more clear what it's supposed to be what it's going to do if you turn it on, or change the behavior. And that's bug 26961, and I put it in the chat. So if you have that set in, turned on, and want to provide feedback about how you'd like it to be, there's that bug.
I've noticed in the notes for 2005, I've noticed that there were a lot of acquisition enhancements, which was great because acquisitions doesn't get a lot of attention. And also I noticed that the cash register has been going through some modifications as well. So you can use it as a generic cash register for things that are non-Koha related, which is pretty cool.
Yes, and there's some options that we're going to test once we have our test server hopefully next week, like circulation desks where you can set like when you log in, you can set what desk you're at. So if you, like us, use generic logins for your circ desks because you have a lot of people, it changes throughout the day. So we have like Mos Circ Plus for the Moscow circulation desk, and it's logged on right now up to 4 computers at a time might be getting used with it in kind of a couple different places. And sometimes it can be harder to track down what happened if we're trying to figure something out, especially 2 of those desks are downstairs in the staff area. So like if a hold came in and we could see that it was checked in at a certain desk, we might know, oh, it's probably on the cart downstairs because they haven't brought it up yet and it was just processed 5 minutes ago or whatever.
I was trying to wrap my head around that feature because the description, I could kind of make some sense out of it, but I couldn't figure out, okay, what is it exactly supposed to do? So how do you identify desk per desk when you log in? Do you log in as a certain, I don't understand.
I haven't tested it yet because we don't have our test server yet and I didn't want to mess around with it. And we've had enough other stuff going on that I haven't had time to test it anyway. But from reading the bug, what I think happens is like when you log in and you can set your library, I think you can also set the desk at that point. So like you'd have your like circ staff just set that when they logged in the morning, select their desk, I think, but again, I haven't done it yet. And then I think it just records that information somewhere. And again, since I haven't tested, I'm not really sure. But that's from reading the bug, I think that's how it is supposed to work. Either before you log in or when you log in, it's an option.
I played with it a little bit. It doesn't seem like it's fleshed out at all. Like it's just the underlying code is there and actual functionality. Like you can set up desks, but you can't really do anything with them yet from what I've played with so far. But it seems like one use case would be like you could basically set sub-locations within a library. So your upstairs desk and your downstairs desk, and then you could have holds go to the upstairs desk, that kind of thing.
We just have a separate account for upstairs and downstairs. It's like, okay.
Yes, that's what I would like to do, but people never remember to log in with the other one when they log in downstairs. So I know another use for it potentially might be like if you have a different location for your curbside. Like I think Barbara, are you who has the drive-through window that you've been doing your holds, and you set up a second branch, right?
Right.
For it. So like in theory, I think the desk is either supposed to be able to, or maybe in a future update would be able to, you could just set the desk, like the drive-through window as a desk, and maybe people could select it as a pickup location that way.
This might be too much of a security risk for a public circulation desk, but could you have it set to either remember the password or just to auto log on? To say which computer is, which checkout station is doing what?
Ours couldn't do that because all of our CERT computers have a shared Google Chrome login to sync our bookmarks and
Okay.
tabs, and so it would do it on all the computers.
So much for that idea.
And we
And if you-
discourage our libraries from using the autofills on the browser that we use for Koha, because a lot of times they go into the wrong patron account because of it.
Yeah, we have our circulation desk just log in as circ, and then it remembers that password, but nothing else. However, we're in a separate staff area. We have very little circulation.
Well, that is 12:30 now. So, did anyone else have any other bugs they wanted to talk about? Open discussion topics.
I'll just mention, I believe I put it out on the jQuery library. I added some code so that we could prevent staff from accidentally renewing lost items. I don't know if you've ever renewed a lost item, but it does not remove the lost fee or remove the lost status when you renew a lost item. So I just disabled the ability to renew lost items in general circ with some code. And I'm also playing, this is not in the library, but I'm also playing with some code right now, working on converting the initials field to a middle name. So that's been interesting. The big challenge has been getting that middle name to show up, like if you're doing searching for a patron. I can get it, I've got it to work on the search results in patrons by using reports to actually pull up that field and repopulate it, and restructured the name a little bit along with it. So it's doable, it's workable. Still have some work to do on it, but it's coming along, and I'm happy that I'm actually making some progress on it.
Great. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up for this week. This meeting, and our next meeting is gonna be, we'll be back at the regular time on December 9th, Wednesday, December 9th, since it is not a national holiday, at the 8:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, or 11:30 Eastern window there. And thanks everyone for coming.